The subject of this video is senior unsecured bond issued by business development corporations, which I will simply abbreviate to BDCs here. I will invest in both the BDC common stocks and senior unsecured debt, but I keep my exposure light due to the inherent risk of those securities. For those familiar with my blog, I frequently discuss BDCs in my post, and that observation about me being cautious with both the stock and the bonds is well known. BDCs are finance companies that provide loans primarily to small and medium-sized private companies located in the United States. In addition to making loans to these companies, which are inherently risky in my opinion, BDCs will frequently provide equity financing to those companies through the purchase of common stock, stock warrants, convertible preferred stock, or some other type of equity investment. BDCs raise capital to invest through share offerings and incurring debt by issuing senior unsecured bonds, which I will simply refer to as SU bonds, and other forms of borrowing, including borrowings under a bank credit facility and from the Small Business Administration. A senior bond would be superior in the capital structure to any junior bond and all equity capital, including common and preferred stocks. The senior secured bond would have a superior claim to the assets subject to the lien compared to the senior unsecured bond owner. Most BDCs have senior unsecured debt ratings at Baa3 for Moody's and at or BB minus or from both from S&P, which are investment grade but just barely, only one notch above the highest junk credit rating. When you start buying investment grade bonds on a frequent basis, as I do, you will notice that the BDC unsecured bonds rated at BBB minus have a higher yield, and I'm referring to yield to maturity rather than current yield there, than other BBB minus rated bonds from non-pass-through entities. BDCs are going to distribute all or almost all of their net investment income in the form of dividends to their common shareholders. And REITs are the same. Real estate investment trusts are another kind of pass-through entity. So there's not any capital or not that much capital being left at the corporate level to provide a cushion for the senior unsecured debt owners. And that's one of the reasons why the debt is viewed as more risky than a non-pass-through corporation senior unsecured bond that's also rated at BBB minus. Even if the company pays a dividend, many companies do not pay any dividend at all. They will pay less than 50% of the net income as a dividend, as opposed to a BDC paying out over 90%, and some are close to 100%. So that adds a layer of risk for BDCs, and it's reflected in part by the higher yield that bond investors want when they put their own money at risk in buying their unsecured debt. And that bond the bond investor opinion needs to be taken into account, because it does come from knowledgeable investors who are placing their own money at risk when buying these bonds, as opposed to a credit rating agency that just gets paid to slap a rating on it. Another reason for the higher yield to maturity for a BDC's SU debt compared to a non-pass-through entity rated the same, is that the loans and equity investments made by BDCs are just risky. The small and mid-sized companies go to BDCs for money because banks are not going to lend them the money that they need to grow. Many will be untested companies in the early stages of developing into a profit-making enterprise. Loans to them are mostly first or second lien and at much higher interest rates than the prime rate that a bank would offer to their prime borrowers. While the loans may be secured by, and frequently are to a very large extent, by a lien on the borrower's assets, the recovery after the borrower files for bankruptcy or is in its last debt throes just before filing for bankruptcy will generally be far lower than the cost of the loan. It's not like a mortgage on a house where 80% of that has a loan to equity value of 80%. The lender is going to recover his money. These small and mid-sized companies generally do not have any assets anywhere near close to the value of their outstanding debt when and if they declare for bankruptcy. So the recovery can be as little as zero in a bankruptcy or much less than the cost of the debt to the cost of the borrowing to the BDC. I will buy BDC bonds, generally maturing in less than 3 years. A lot can go wrong as the time period for maturity increases. Almost all the bonds that I own now from BDCs will be maturing from this month. I have several maturing this month through January 2026, so that's pretty short maturity range. I did buy one today that matures in January 2027, issued by the Morgan Stanley BDC, and I paid 98.391. The total cost with a $1 commission is 98.491. The stock symbol for that BDC is MSDL. The current yield at my total cost is 4.57. That just divide the coupon by the total cost number. Since I purchased at a discount to par value, the yield to maturity will be higher since it would include the gain realized when the bond is paid off. For a 2-bond purchased at that total cost number, the quote profit end of quote is precisely $30.18. I know precisely to the penny what my total return will be when and if the bond is paid off at maturity and all interest payments are made. The YTM is 5.307, so that's going to be significantly higher than other BBB minus rated bonds. As of today's purchase, YTM is basically calculated from the date of purchase. The YTM without the commission was 5.361%, so that will be higher. The profit will be taxed not as a capital gain, as I've explained many times, but as interest income. I now own 4 and will not buy any more due to the credit risk. I did buy 2 more Blue Owl BDC senior unsecured debt maturing in January 2026, bringing my total number of that one to 4. But then I have 10 maturing next month. I discussed pairing my common stock position in my blog post posted last Monday. The stock symbol is OBDC. I will list the CUSIP number of the Morgan Stanley BDC bond in the More section below. Before I made the purchase of that bond, I looked at the last earnings report for this BDC. I will always do that when buying a bond. One focus for the BDC is whether the percentage of non-accruing loans to total loans is a low or high number or somewhere in between. I really lose interest pretty quick when that number is approaching 5%, or in some cases they will be over 5% of non-accruing loans to total loans. That's not a good number for a bond investor when the dividend is when the net income investment income is being paid out to the common shareholders. The Morgan Stanley BDC last reported earnings, which is available at the SEC website. Just enter the stock symbol and you can find it. That was for the quarter ending September 30, 2024. As of that date, two investments, two portfolio companies were on non-accrual status, representing just 0.2% of the total investments at amortized cost. That is a good number for a BDC. So I went ahead and I bought two more bonds and was willing to go out to the January 27 maturity for that particular bond. I'm not likely to replace the Oaktree specialty BDC bonds that are maturing later this month.